Chancy and the Grand Rascal by Sid Fleischman. 5. Calamity. When Chancy awoke, he saw a chicken hawk, like a spot before his eyes in the dawn sky. He leapt from his blanket and hurried to the week-old chick scratching around in the open coop. He herded the flock to safety under the straw suitcase. The hawk, its wings fanned like outstretched claws, began circling overhead. Uncle Will was watching him, too. After a moment he said, "That varmint's got his eye on other game, Chancy. He's spied out your last peep." Chancy picked up a handful of stones. The soaring hawk was tightening its circles and drifting over the lower end of the island. Chancy began to run. He tried to keep one eye on the hawk and the other on the ground. "Chick, chick," he called. "Where was that pesky chick? Didn't he have better sense than to go meandering off by himself? The infernal hawk would get him for sure. Chick, chick." Suddenly, Chancy saw the hawk drop from the sky. Uncle Will began waving his coat in the air. "Kia! Kia!" he yelled. Chancy hurried along in a blind fury. Where was that fool chick? Chick, chick! Kia! Kia! From a tangle of debris ahead, Chancy heard a muffled cheep, 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 cheep. At almost the same instant, he saw the hawk swoop down for the kill. Its tail fanned, its wings thrashed the air, and its talons struck at an old fallen log. "Kia! Kia!" Chancy shouted, and fired the stones like buckshot. The hawk gave out a great angry squawk and flapped its huge wings. Then it swept out over the water. Its talons were empty. Chancy heaved another handful of stones and rushed to the log. It was hollow. He dropped to his knees and peered inside. He could see a pair of shining eyes deep within. The chick was scratching away furiously. "Uncle Will, look here!" He reached inside, but the chick backed deeper into the hollow. Finally, Uncle Will lifted one end of the log, and the chick came tumbling out like a ball of fire. Chancy caught hold of him. The chick was a foxy red and as light as air. He took a peck at Chancy's fingers. "That's the maddest peep I ever saw," Uncle Will laughed. "And the biggest. Must be a rooster." "He's big, all right. I do believe that hawk got off lucky. That chick of yours would have eaten him alive." Chancy laughed. He was proud of the chick. 1 day old, and he had outsmarted a full-grown hawk. Chancy raised the peep to his face and admired him. He had never seen a blacker, fiercer eyes on a newborn chick. It scratched and fluttered in Chancy's hands like a wild bird. Then Chancy let him walk along his arm, his bottom-heavy, cottony tail swaggering as he went. His wings shot out for balance once or twice. They were almost as small as fins on a fish, and looked foolish, but they would grow. Once, at Chancy's shoulder, the chick hunkered on its frail matchstick legs and dug in with its paper-thin toenails. Yes, sir, that was a fine young rooster, Chancy thought. It had been a near calamity, but he could thank the hawk for spying out the lost bird. "That's what I'll name you," Chancy exclaimed, strolling back with the chick sitting on his shoulder. "Don't go naming a chicken if you expect to eat it," Uncle Will said. "Calamity!" Chancy smiled and looked out across the river. The hawk was a mere speck over the treetops of Kentucky. "Yes, sir, Uncle Will, that's his name, Calamity." Days passed. The woodpile grew stick by stick and cord by cord, but the steamboats churned by without interest. The grub in Chancy's wheelbarrow was getting low, and Uncle Will left Crow Island with a clock under his arm. He returned later in the day with a string of sausages, a whole ham, and bad news. "Chancy, there's a wood yard a couple miles upriver," he said. "They must have 300 cords stacked on the bank. That's where the steamboats are wooding up. They're passing us by." "Thunder!" Chancy said. After 2 weeks of heavy work, they were no closer to Paducah than when they had started. "Thunder and lightning!" Uncle Will laughed. "Chancy, there's more ways than one to skin a cat or sell a load of wood." He pulled 2 sausages apart, tossed one to Chancy, and they sat in the shade of the barn door to eat. "We've only got to use our 2 heads and anything else at hand. I've been thinking about that plunder you found washed up on the island here." Chancy glanced over at the broken oar, the tar bucket, and the arm of the old chair. They seemed almost too trifling to think about. "How much tar is left in that bucket?" Uncle Will asked. Chancy got up and fetched it. "Some, but not much." "Some is enough. Set that bucket in the sun so the tar will run. Splendid. With this red slab of barn door, we'll have our wood sold in no time." Chancy looked up in amazement. Uncle Will cut a green willow stick about as thick as his thumb and beat one end with a rock until it was soft as a brush. Then he dipped it in the melted tar. He painted a sign that could be seen a quarter-mile off. It read, "Wood, $100 a cord." Chancy glanced at it doubtfully. "Uncle Will, I do believe you priced that wood mighty expensive. Who will buy it?" "Nobody. But this sign will halt some steamboat captain. He'll figure any wood seller crazy enough to price wood at $100 a cord was born for his own amusement. Wait and see. I know their breed. It shouldn't take long." They propped the barn door against the woodpile so that the sign faced the river and waited. All that day boats passed upriver and down, and laughter howled out across the water. But none of the boats stopped. Early the next morning, however, a sway-backed stern-wheeler named River Goose, loaded with hay and passengers, gave out a guffaw with its steam whistle. The boat came strutting in alongside the island and poised itself in the current. The captain leaned out of the pilot house window. He had a heavy round face with great mutton chop whiskers and a watery gleam in his eye. Uncle Will gave Chancy a sidelong glance. "Our woodpile's as good as sold," he said. "Just let me handle the talk." Chancy nodded. Calamity liked to roost on his shoulder, and the chick sat there now watching the goings-on. With the steamboat stopped, the passengers gathered along the rails to see what was happening. The captain peered down at the sign, shifted a cut of tobacco from one cheek to the other. "How do, woodseller?" "Morning, Captain," Uncle Will said. "Need any wood today?" "Not a stick. I just wanted to see what kind of darned fool would ask $100 a cord." "You're looking at him," Uncle Will said grandly. The captain made a face. "What do you think you're selling? Pie-annas by the cord?" The passengers began to snicker and smile. "No, sir," Uncle Will answered. "If this was common firewood, we'd be selling it at $1.50 a cord. But that's not what it is, Captain. You're looking at an almighty rare wood. You're looking at 20 tight cords of pure Ohio fatwood." "Ohio fatwood? That's what I said." The captain burst into a laugh and gave his companions in the pilot house a wise wink. "Why, that's so rare I never heard of it." "I'd be surprised if you did. It don't grow anywhere but on this small island. In the old days, river hogs used to come here to dine. This was their burial ground." "River hogs? They're extinct now, but the roots of these trees have been feeding on hog tallow." "They look like plain old willow to me." "No doubt," said Uncle Will. "But it's genuine, straight-grained Ohio fatwood. Why, sir, the sap runs 80-90% pure hog fat. Do tell. Captain, this wood is so fat that one stick will drive your steamboat 6 to 8 miles. Why, these 20 cords will power you all the way to New Orleans and part of the way back." "Bunkum," the captain howled. "You think I don't know willow when I see it?" "I see you're a man who likes to drive a hard bargain, Captain. I'd like to sell you this fat wood. Make an offer." "Can't use it. I just took on all I need upriver." Uncle Will hooked a thumb in the pocket of his yellow calico vest. "Captain, I'd wager you $25 we'll accept any offer you care to make on this entire lot of prime straight-grain Ohio fatwood." The captain scratched through his mutton chops. "Any offer?" "That's what I said, sir. Any offer." Chancy held his breath. The captain's eyes lit with glee. "You got yourself a wager, woodseller, and my passengers are witness to it." "I see that," said Uncle Will. "What do you offer?" 2 cents a cord." "Sold," said Will Buckthorne. The entire steamboat burst into laughter. Chancy felt a hot sting of humiliation. The captain had got the best of Uncle Will. 2 cents a cord, 40 cents for all their work. In no time at all, the captain called for a gangplank and directed his roustabouts to hustle the wood aboard. Uncle Will remained in the sunniest of spirits, and Chancy thought his good sense had deserted him. When the last stick of wood was aboard, the captain himself strode down the gangplank to give Uncle Will the money. "Here you are, sir," he said with expansive glee. 40 cents. Any time you have more of that rare Ohio fatwood to sell, I'll be along." "Thank you, Captain," said Uncle Will in a robust voice. "And now you'll kindly pay up the $25. "What's that?" "We wagered that noble sum, sir, that I'd accept any offer you made. You offered 2 cents a cord. I accepted. Your very passengers are witness to it. You do owe me $25, Captain. The captain's face flushed as red as a sunset. The passengers broke into a fresh round of laughter. They'd have a tale to tell. Suddenly, Chancy couldn't help laughing himself. He should have known better than to doubt Uncle Will. The captain stood speechless for a moment, his mutton-chop whiskers trembling. But with the passengers peering down at him, he had no choice but to pay off the wager. Then he stormed back up the gangplank and had it hauled in after him. Before long, he stuck his head through the pilot-house window. His mood had changed. He was chuckling. I thought I knew every woodyard trick on the river, he said, shifting the chaw of tobacco in his cheek. But come to think of it, that's the first time I was ever outwitted and got more than my money's worth. That wood was worth $30, and you let me have it cheap. I'm obliged to you. He pulled in his head. Bells began to ring. The whistle cleared its throat, and the stern wheel began to thrash. Soon, the river goose was plowing its way downriver. Chancy looked at the $25. He'd never seen that much money in his entire life. We're as good as in Paducah, he said. Uncle Will shut one eye thoughtfully. We can't take your flock of peeps along. I reckon we can sell 'em, Chancy said brightly. For now, anything seemed possible with Uncle Will along. He was a grand rascal, wasn't he? Now let me calculate, said Uncle Will, scratching his chin. It would be easier to sell those scrawny birds if they were big enough to eat. We can't wait for 'em to grow up. Chancy gave a start. An idea had sprung full-blown into his head. He was so surprised that he began to wonder if he had a touch of the Grand Rascal himself. I declare, Uncle Will, there are more ways than one to skin a cat or sell a flock of chicks. A splendid thought, Uncle Will nodded. I was about to say so myself. I wonder who we can get to take that flock off your hands. Shouldn't be hard, Chancy said. There's tar left in the bucket and another side to that barn door. And that is the end of Chapter 5.